Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Ag Forecast, brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, your premier platform for real-time global insights. Well, here's a few of the things we're going to cover in this video. One, what kind of storm systems do we have coming around the Christmas holiday here? Because we want to know what that's going to mean in terms of travel. We're also going to talk about how long we've got where these above-average temperatures are kind of hanging around, and what's the interaction right now between the polar vortex and the Madden-Julian oscillation. I'm going to finish this one up by talking about the troubles I think we're seeing down in South America. That'll be a pretty important one to be looking out for here. First of all, just want to tell you this. The last 3 days, I thought we had pretty good verification from our models here, picking up on the snow in parts of Colorado, New Mexico, and getting down there into Texas, and also here in the northern plains. But where you see the really heavy rainfall over the last 3 days, leading into late Sunday night, especially right in here in parts of the Carolinas where we had so much snow that melted and now is giving us flooding. Well, I got some bad news. Toward the end of the week, we got another storm system following this same track. So let's get right into this one and figure it out. Okay. Much of the beginning of this week is going to be relatively quiet unless you are out west. Out west, strong onshore flow will dominate the pattern through early Wednesday morning and actually for several days after that. But for much of the rest of the country, look at this. Quiet in terms of total accumulated precipitation through Wednesday morning from our high resolution model here, and warm. This is actually your 5-day temperature forecast kind of all wrapped up into one, and we can see some quite warm conditions spreading across much of the country. Now, remember, this is warmer than average, and it's mid-December. So we're talking here about temperatures in the upper 30s and lower 40s rather than temperatures in the 20s and in the teens for a lot of the middle part of this country. So quiet through middle of the week, but let's see what's going on over there out west before we move into that forecast. Now check this out. We see two big storm systems lined up and rocking and rolling. This was the one coming in on Sunday, and this is the system that is just going to be taking aim here on the Pacific Northwest and just absolutely soaking those states like Washington, Oregon, Montana, Idaho, and California here. And it's going to be doing that with both rain and snow. So let me show you what I'm talking about. As I animate this forward, you can keep a close eye on the Pacific Northwest as we get things started, because it's just going to have strong onshore flow through Wednesday. That's the main region through the start of the week that's still dealing with a lot of unsettled weather. Now, by the time we get past that into Wednesday morning and then into Wednesday afternoon and evening, what we're going to be watching at this point will be the development by early Thursday morning of a low-pressure system right down here in the lower Mississippi River Valley. And the trough that's bringing this through is taking its dear sweet time getting right up to the East Coast. So you watch this as I animate forward. That low-pressure system forms Thursday morning and slowly traverses throughout Thursday into Friday and then into Saturday morning up the East Coast. Now, if we step this back, the question that I'm trying to understand as we progress throughout this week is, will we be able to bring in enough cold air on the backside of this that we might be able to bring in some lighter snow as we transition from rain over to snow as the system exits the northeast? Certainly, there's not a lot of cold air in Canada to be brought in behind this. So I would tell you my major threat for this one is just going to be heavy, heavy rains into this area. Meanwhile, look at this in the back. The Northwest is still getting hit pretty hard. Now let's take you beyond this Friday and Saturday. So there it goes again. There goes that system. You can see the snow there in parts of Michigan, then spreading through the eastern Corn Belt, possibly that switch over to snow there. And then I'm watching a little clipper system coming in through parts of Canada here. It's going to start here in Alberta and get to this region. And out ahead of it, we will possibly see the potential for some lighter snow as we get into the weekend. So this is now valid early Saturday morning. And as I progress forward, you can see the snow spreading from the eastern Dakotas into Minnesota and then eventually over toward the Great Lakes. Meanwhile, on midday Saturday, we have a little shortwave trough that's coming here out of parts of Colorado, Utah, and Wyoming. And that one might spread some light snow into the Central Plains by the time we get into early Sunday morning. But look, the theme is still the same out west. Strong onshore flow is the name of the game for the next, well, it's about as far as I can look in the forecast. Now, the bigger question becomes, what happens on Christmas Eve and then on Christmas Day for a lot of folks here? I'm watching one system here on Christmas Eve kind of getting over to the Eastern Corn Belt. And this particular system has shown up in the last two model runs by the European model, but remember, we're out 174 hours in the forecast, so that's pretty far out. So I would say if you're in this region, especially in southern Michigan, northern Indiana, and northern Ohio, we need to be paying close attention over the next 3 to 4 days to see how the weather models evolve for that Christmas Eve forecast. Okay, what about Christmas Day? On Christmas Day, we have a shortwave trough that's ejecting there in parts of Montana and then digging into the central U.S. This is now 6 a.m. on Christmas Day, and we can see that really stretching right in through this area, we have some lift in the atmosphere, giving us some snow showers here and then to the south of it where it's warm enough rain. Now, this is not looking to be a major accumulator of snow here on Christmas Day, but that is, the latest model run. It was not there in the previous one. This is the 0Z run from the European model on Monday morning. And you can see that spreads light snow throughout the day on Christmas through the northern plains, getting there into Wisconsin and Minnesota while there's rain to the south of it. Now, to be honest with you, I'm much more concerned about this. This is now noon, the day after Christmas. We've seen multiple model runs take a shortwave trough out of the northwest and dig it into the Four Corners region, kicking off a low pressure system right in through here. And that low pressure system, it's got multiple possibilities in its track. But as it exits, it's going to be a pretty big one and potentially spreading again a lot more rain and potentially some more snow here on the backside. There is a lot of uncertainty on this though, because I got to see how much cold air comes in before I make a call on that snowfall. So when we look over the next 7 days, what do we see? We have our system at the end of the week racing up the East Coast. This is another flooding threat, especially into this area. We have our Clipper system bringing some light snow to the northern plains in southern Canada. We have the system coming out next Saturday here into parts of Colorado, Utah, and Wyoming, then getting into the central plains. And then again, the northwest, just repeated strong onshore flow events. I just want to bring up this one more time just to let you know the latest model run did bring in this lighter snow here into this area, but this is still going to be a tricky forecast. I don't have a lot of confidence because the operational models have been all over the place with the placement of this system on Christmas Day. What I am not seeing right now, though, is a major winter storm on Christmas Day or on Christmas Eve. Again, maybe some lighter snow over here on Christmas Eve, but nothing, no major shut them down kind of winter storm. Okay, I just need to show this because I got a lot of people ask me, are we going to have a white Christmas? If you live at elevation out west, the answer is absolutely yes. Also, if you're here in the northeastern part of the U.S., it looks as though you're going to be snowy there as well. And here in parts of North Dakota, southern Canada, I think we got it as well. But we'll give you an updated map for this one on Thursday. Now, why no major winter storms at least through the next 7 to 10 days? We are lacking a lot of cold air in Canada. You see, if you want to get a big low pressure system that just smokes the country here east of the Rocky Mountains, you've got to have a lot of cold air locked up here. And when that happens, you'll also develop a giant ridge of higher atmospheric pressure there as well. And we just don't have either of these two things. So that's why I can tell you that over the next 7 to 10 days, we're going to be missing out on those features. So what is the pattern doing? Let's kind of play it forward here. We're going to start this really on Wednesday. Look down there in the lower Mississippi River Valley. That is now Wednesday night and a Thursday morning. This is the trough that will be developing that major weather system that's going to soak the eastern part of the country. But it looks like a deep trough, but it does not have cold air from Canada to be using to really strengthen and deepen and produce a lot of snow. So that system races on off by the time we get into the middle part of the weekend, and a ridge builds in behind it. Now, here's a little shortwave trough that we're watching on Christmas Eve that's going to kind of eject over into the Central Plains, but that's not the one I'm concerned about. Remember, it's that system that comes through on the 26th. There it is, right there, that we have good ensemble model agreement. Now, as this system digs into the Four Corners region, like I said last time, I am watching this area for the development of a low, and depending on how much cold air we see in Canada at that time, will basically help us answer on the northern side of this, will we get heavy snow out of this or will we not? But again, this is the days after Christmas that we're watching this next system. Now, I just want to tell you this. Remember how we kept talking about a ridge developing here? Well, the latest model runs here from the European model don't want to let that ridge get blocked up. Look at this. By the time we get to the 28th, 29th, and 30th, we lose it. And we go back to some strong zonal flow. And with that trough here, with the ridge to the south of it, that is not a pattern that's blocked up. And that's something to be talking about, because as long as we don't block up the pattern in the Pacific Ocean, we are going to be able to, as you see here, kind of maintain this warmer than average kind of jet stream pattern that brings in these warmer temperatures. Just want to show you that for the 26th and 27th, the model is definitely picking up on the advection of that warm, moist, kind of unstable air here into this part of the country as that low pressure system comes out on the 26th. So I'm going to watch it very carefully over the coming days because that is the one that I think we need to pay attention to here. But it may not be till the end of the month before we start to really bring in some cooler air here, and it may even be beyond that for the East Coast. So that's what this pattern's doing. Now, this is what I mean by no upstream blocking. When you see the jet stream really resisting going into big ridges and big troughs across the Pacific like this, we just don't have what it takes to block up the Pacific. In the Northwest, they love this pattern this time of year. Now, I understand it makes travel a headache and it's wet and soggy and cold, but we're building up snowpack. For those that do ag in the Northwest, it is absolutely crucial that this happens. Okay, as we take a look at what might be possibly giving us a pattern flip, I just want to tell you this. We have spent a lot of time with the Madden-Julian Oscillation in phase 3. We got 2 tropical cyclones right now in the Indian Ocean. And those 2 tropical cyclones are the consequence of a lot of convection, which is exactly what happens in phase 3. Well, we're going to go from there to phase 4. And then look at this. The European model wants to stall this out in phase 5 and slowly progress to phase 6. Now remember, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are the warmer phases for a lot of North America, with 7, 8, 1, and 2 being the colder phases. We will get here. And that is why I'm talking about the potential for a major pattern flip starting the new year. But in the meantime, if it hangs out here in phase 5, well, it doesn't matter that the polar vortex, by the time you get to the 26th, has a sudden stratospheric warming event where I put the X, elongating the polar vortex back like this, because there's a lag on when the polar vortex does this and the cooler air arriving. And right now, I think that lag is, we might not see this until we get into the new year before we start to see some bigger colder outbreaks for the eastern half of the country. Now, what about that polar vortex? What about the MJO do we have to talk about with respect to South America? Remember, we've been calling for this now for several weeks, that drier pattern. And it makes sense because phases 3, 4, and 5, especially 5, where the MJO is going to stall for a little while, is a dry pattern for Brazil. Wet on either side, but dry right in through here. And the question is, will this become an issue if we stick around in this phase for too long? Now, certainly to the south of it, things have been quite rocky. Watch this animation here. This is looking over the last week of precipitation as measured by satellite. And once we got into the 14th, watch what happened in Argentina. Here we go. They had this storm system. Look at that right there in Argentina. You're looking right down here. This storm system went racing across parts of Cordoba, over towards Santa Fe, hit Buenos Aires, and then got into Uruguay. And that storm system went racing right in through there, caused some major problems. Now, before I get away from it, look at this. Tropical cyclone hitting India, tropical cyclone here south of the equator, and over here where we've been talking about some drier conditions in parts of Australia, recently got quite a bit of thunderstorm activity. But what I want to come back to is this for South America. In Cordoba, we had drought from last year. Rains came in, heavy rains at time kind of erasing the drought. Then do you see this little time period here? That was about 12 to 15 days where it was wet initially and then very dry. And then the most recent rainfall event came in with nearly 3 inches of rain. Now, why I'm talking about this is because we've seen some of Argentina's most productive ground have a really rough start to the 2018-19 growing season. And we're just going to have to keep a very close eye on it. So that's why we do these videos twice a week, so that we can keep you up to date on any major storm system moving through the United States. And we can also keep a close eye on that Brazilian and Argentinian crop that's coming out this year, because it will be crucial for what we're going to be seeing in our markets starting next year in the United States. So with that, though, I'll go ahead and wrap up this forecast video. We at Nutrien Ag Solutions thank you for your attention. Hope we look forward to our next forecast coming out on Thursday. Talk to you then. Thank you.